Okay, good morning. So we're up to Reish Samach Vav Seif Gimel. So we're talking about when a person is traveling and he's got his money bag. And yesterday we discussed what should he do with his money bag. Should he put it on his donkey? And the concern there is Shvisas Behemtei. A person is obligated not to make sure their animal rests as well on Shabbos, or to give it to a non-Jewish person. So that was yesterday. Now we're going to discuss different permutations. It's all from a Gemara there in Shabbos. Sif Gimel. Hoye imay chamer v'cheresh sheita v'katan. You're walking with your donkey, v'cheresh sheita v'katan, and also you've got with you a cheresh. A cheresh means a deaf, mute person. He can't speak and he cannot hear. Sheita means someone who is mentally incompetent. V'katan, and a child who is lacking das. So what should you do? Says the Mechaber Yanichenu ala chamar. In that situation, better to put it on the chamar, on the donkey, and don't give it to one of these three people. Says Rashi, says Mishabura Yud Aleph, Shehin b'nei Adam kamoisa, because they're human beings. And you might, if you give it to a person, albeit a person who's not mechuyev mitzvahs, you may get confused at another time and give it to a person who is mechuyev mitzvahs, which you cannot do. So better to put it on the chamar. That's Gimel. Dalet. If you've only got a cheresh and a sheita with you, that means a deaf-mute person and a sheita, someone who is mentally incompetent, then what do? Yidnena l'sheita. You better to give it to the sheita, l'fisha ein lo das klal, as opposed to the cheresh, who is deaf and mute. Better to give it to the sheita who is lacking das totally. Says the Mishnah Berurah Yud Beis, of a cheresh daita klishta islay. He's got some form of das. If you look at 16. He says, "Va'af cheresh u'chacham u'noven." He can be very intelligent. However, kosav v'shai shuv zikras Moshe shegzeres hakosav ilachshiv k'misha ein ben das. You can have a person who is a deaf mute. He can be an intelligent person, but there's a gezeres hakosav, says Moshe, that we treat him as someone who is lacking das, and so too Reb Shlomo Zalman writes in Minchas Shlomo that shahayil ve'ena shemeh ve'ena medaber ef shelachshiva ba'kachroy al maisov. Since he cannot speak and hear, he cannot be sort of responsible for his actions. Even though he can sign and he can write, it's not considered proper communication, and therefore he's not considered a proper bendas. Interesting. Okay, sif hey. Sheita v'katan. What if the two people with you are a sheita and a cotton? So then it says the Mechaber Yitnenu l'sheita. Better to give it to the sheita. Sha'cotton yovay lichlal das, because the cotton will at some point become into the realms of a ben das, a bar das. And cheresh for cotton Yitnenu l'mishiyet. So then, but if you've got a cheresh and a cotton, then you can give it to whichever one. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Cotton Yud Gimel, the kol echad yesh lemayla b'fnei atzma. Each one's got a certain advantage, and therefore there's no preference over each of them. Okay, so those are the various permutations of what to do with your money bag if you're traveling on Erev Shabbos and suddenly Shabbos comes in. Okay, Sif Vov. Yesh Omrim, Shekshenoisne la'achad me'elu, when you give it to one of these people, like we've discussed, either a cheresh, a sheita, etc., etc., manicha olav kasher mahalich, you give it to them when they're already walking, and then you take it from them when they've stopped. So again, we're trying to avoid the Issa Deraisa over here, and therefore you're taking away one of the ingredients of the Melacha, i.e. they haven't done the Akira, so you're giving to them when they're already walking, so therefore it's not going to be an Issa Deraisa. Says the Ramah, V'davka k'shenoisin lahem mishachashecha. That's true when it's already Shabbos. Avol k'shenoisin lahem mi'ba'idiyim mutter b'chol inyan. Because if you give it to the cheresh of a cotton mi'ba'idiyim, then you're not going to have a problem. Says the Mishnah Berurah. Sif Cotton Yudalet. Kasher Mahalech. V'chanal b'behema b'sif beis. V'hatam kadesh lo yasu hacheresh sheita v'cotton is a deraisa al yodei. The reason why you do it, you give it to this person, the cheresh sheita v'cotton, when they're already walking, is that they won't end up doing an issa deraisa because they haven't done the akira, they haven't done the lifting, the initial lifting. V'afal pi she'ena mitzvah. Mitzuva al shvisosum k'mei behema. Even though you're not mitzuva on their shvitza like a behema, where you're mitzuva that you've got to make sure the animal rests. Mikol makom hari also lachinim isav yadayim. When it comes to the cheresh sheita v'katan, you can't be machel them issa actively. In cotton. So therefore, even though the shvisa is not on you, still you should try and minimize. You can't be machal and be yodayim, and therefore you've got to try and minimize the issa involved. Now that is true if you give it to the mishech hashecha, but miba'id no problem. Why? Because if you give it to them before Shabbos comes in, then it's not considered machil biyodayim. You're not actively making them do the issa. Given the ata adayin less be'isura, because right now it's not Shabbos, so there's no problem. Later on after dark, they'll do an issa. They'll then pick up their legs and move. At that point, they're doing it by themselves. And you don't have to protest against them when they're doing an issa. Therefore, you have to take the kiss, the pocket, the money away from them when they're ready, when they get up. With an animal, you are obligated to make sure your animal rests on Shabbos. And furthermore, you could be doing over the issa of mechamer, leading the animal. Even if you give it to the animal, that doesn't help you. You've got to take it from the animal when the animal gets up. When the animal stops, when it stops, either dark after Shabbos comes in, when it stops to go to the bathroom. And then you put it back on the animal when it's already started moving. That the animal shouldn't do the combined akira and hanocha with your money bag. The Magen Avram is machme even miboidyoim not to give it to the chereshot of a cotton. Veneer it the karmelis yesh lahakel. That if it's not an issa deraisa of hotzah, it's an issa drabanan of the karmelis, then maybe you can be mekil miboidyoim. Okay, good. Zayin. So far we've talked in the first 6 seifim, all different types of permutations. You've got a chamar, you've got an Ein Yehudi, you've got a chereshot of a cotton. All different types of permutations. What if you haven't got any of the above? You're walking on Erev Shabbos, you've got your purse, like we said yesterday, that's your whole life. There's no internet banking, there's no credit cards, you've got your pouch of money with you, and you've got no one else with you. Then what? From all of the above possibilities, then Chazal, because we're worried you're bahul al mamonoi and you might come to do the actual issa deraisa, they allow you to do the following, i.e., to carry it pachas mi arba amas. V'davka kisei o metzia sheba liyadoi, avalim loy ba liyadoi loy. But dafka is something which is yours, but if it's not yet yours, then not. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah. Tez Zayin, im ein imay. This is a very serious shvus. Still malayet samtzim b'shiuray, because we're worried. Generally speaking, this is the situation of the answer of last resort. We don't initially tell the person to carry pachas medaladamas because it's easy to get it wrong. And if you carry daladamas in Rishus Rabbim, you go over Nisa Deraisa. Over Koishi God Letiru Chazal Dovazen, and Chazal were very reluctant to allow you to carry something pachas medaladamas mishum pseida, because of the loss that's going to be incurred. And like we said previously yesterday, that a person is bahul al mamona, he's very anxious about his money, he'll get confused and he'll do worse things. He'll carry and he'll do an issa deraisa. Lokach leitzir Chazal. And therefore Chazal only allow you to carry something pachas medaladamas in a situation of last resort where there's no other option, there's no chamar, there's no Yehudi, there's no cheresh cotton, etc. Pachas medaladamas. Now, says the Mishnah Berurah Yudayin, v'zeh ein umayel el inyan tiltu b'shus rabim over karmelis. The note, says the Mishnah Berurah, that this eitzah of pachas medaladamas is only going to help you when you're already in the Rishus Rabbim or in the Karmelis, where the problem is carrying daladamas. Alkein mahanizeh, therefore going less than daladamas is okay, it helps. Avol mekarmelis Rishus Yochid or the Rishus Rabbim, when you go from one Rishus to another, i.e. from a Karmelis either to Rishus Yochid or Rishus Rabbim, the Kolshke Rishus Rabbim Rishus Yochid, The Issa is not Daladamas in Rishus Rabim, but is carrying from one domain to another. There, even going half an arm is a problem. Ain't a moils there. This is not going to help you. Al Kain bin Yonenu. Therefore, in our situation, what happens when you get close to your house? So good. Till now, I've carried pachas medaladamas. But when you get to the final bit, then what are you going to do? Because you're going to have to go from one rishus to another rishus. Because your house is a rishus yachid. Then what you do? Yizrek hakis kal achayad lebeisei. You sort of throw the money bag into your house, kal achayad, sort of indirectly with a shinui. Kadesh lo tev hachnosa gemura. That it shouldn't be a proper hachnosa. So you've done this with a bedrabanan. Vafilu im osa hanocha k'shebosa mechal lebeisei. Even if you do a hanocha close to your house. They still allow you to sort of drag it into your house because of the loss that would otherwise incur. It's not good what some people do. They carry a child less than daladamas when they take him for a bris milah. Because you've got the same problem. When you're going from one rishus to another, you haven't the eights of pachas and daladamas doesn't help you. Better, therefore, to carry the baby who's going to the shul for the bris milah by way of a non-Jewish person. In other words, let the non-Jewish person take him from one rishus to another rishus, and then you can do the rest of the transport by going pachas me'arba amos. And then when you get to the other end, you get to the shul, get the in Yehudi to carry him over the doorpost from the Rishus Harabim or Carmelis into the Rishus Yochid. The Magen Avraham says, why are you doing this in the first place? Just do the bris at home and avoid all the problems. Okay. Yudches, pachas me'arba amos, v'yamed lofish ben time. That means when you do pachas medaladamas, you got to stop. You take 3.5 amas and then you stop. You lofish ben time. You rest in between. Rega echad for a moment. Lahafsik ben nehem. V'hanochas gufek hanochas chayfetz. And by you standing still, that's as if there's a hanoch of the chayfetz. V'afal gav the enu oimid ben time tzorech atzmai. I'm not really doing it for myself. Lo nuach katzaz elekadesh leyaver abamas v'basachas. I'm doing it just as a sort of a means to make sure that I'm not carrying daladamas. That's still considered halachically stopping to rest, and therefore you haven't done daladamas b'basachas. V'yesh machmirin. There are those who are machmir shetzorech dafka leishev ben time. You should actually sit down in between, or at least put the item down. And kosva achreinim the pachas me'arbamas yoyse odif sheyi alidei shnaim sheyi alidei echad. That actually pachas is better than doing it shnaim she'asu, than doing it with two people. They're both ways of relegating the Issa Deraisa to an Issa Drabanon. Because when you're doing it shnaim she'asu, two people carrying it together, then you certainly don't need to rest in between. To call echad have a ma'aser chodesh, because each one is like a new ma'aser, and therefore you won't need to rest. Sheba liyodei, what's that going on? Pachas me'arbamas v'dafka kisei emitzia sheba liyodei. Yeah, hainu miboydium, they came your way before Shabbos, because then it's yours, and then you can do it. But if otherwise you haven't got any heter to sort of to do this with something that came your way afterwards. Okay, let's do ches. It's very short. Ches. Yesh Oimrim, the dafka mishahich baderech. We're dafka talking about a person where it became dark, it became Shabbos on your travels. Shoyesov adayin yeshus b'yom, he thought he had enough time to get to his destination. Avul misha yotz mibeso samach l'chashecha, but someone who left his home close to dark, v'shochach v'hitzi l'Rishus Rabim, he forgot, and he carried into Rishus Rabim, lo yitilu b'shum echad me'adrochim elu. Then all of the above heterim, giving it, putting it on the chamor or the cherishut of a cotton or whatever, or doing a pachas and lamas, that doesn't help you. These heterim are specifically for a traveler who thought he would make it in time but didn't. Not someone who just sort of left his house close to Shabbos and then it suddenly became Shabbos and he realized he's carrying something. Ches says Mr. Bayoim, he thought it'd get then. It says it's a k'tzasoinus. It's like a little bit inadvertent. It's really not his fault. Hatam to Peshehu. What is he leaving his house so close to Shabbos carrying something? Given the Beis HaYitzia, Yosamach Chashecha, Hilo Lochush, Shema Yishkach V'Taltzena B'Rishus Rabbim. He should have thought about it, and he should have realized he may come to carry in Rishus Rabbim. Avol Kashiyotim B'Yodyoim, but if he left and well in time, Shori Apiyad Roch Manal, then that's different, and then we give some dispensation. Lo Yitiru Loi. Then we don't allow this fellow. That he should undo his belt in the marketplace. And he asked the non-Jewish person to look after it. That's what we'll get to, Ms. Shem. And the Rashba argues with this Yeshomrim and says that actually you can be soimech even for a fellow who left close to Shabbos and forgot he was carrying something, and yesh lismech olav, that you can use all the dispensations. Okay, say it all with that.